Hi everyone, I'm Maggie. I'm going to talk a little bit about increasing concentration and focus. So this is me, part of AZ Learning Services. Here are a few things that we do. If you have any questions about what we do, please check out our website, AZ Learning Services, or you can look at our events that are posted on Experience BU throughout the term. So let's start with reflecting. I always like to reflect on my past as a way to learn about myself and to build on what's already working or to just understand what's not working. So for focus and concentration, if we think about a time when we were most focused and maybe a time when we were least focused, and here's some questions to ask. Like, what were you doing at the time? Was it something you were really interested in or something that you weren't really interested in? Where were you? What was your environment like? What else was going on? People, activities, what were you thinking about, if possible? So these are all so many different factors involved with concentration and focus. So this is a way to sort of learn about ourselves. So a chart can be helpful. So here's an example, just really simple. Just start to jot down everything about when you were most focused and then everything when you were least focused, and just sort of try to identify some maybe things that you can use moving forward as a way to increase your focus or things to avoid when you're least focused or just to understand yourself. Right now it's a little bit strange, COVID, working from home, like I'm working in my room right now and it's not what I'm used to. So if I'm doing this kind of exploration, don't be frustrated and say that, oh, there's so many things I can't control right now. When you're making that list about a time when you're most focused or least focused, look for the things that you can carry forward. So, for example, I know that I'm most focused when something that I'm interested in. So that's a little bit easier. But I might try to use some of the pieces about those times when I'm most focused to help me for something that I'm not as interested in. So, for example, there might be times of day when I'm more interested, more focused. So I can use that to try and organize my day in a way that works for me. Also, maybe like I like chew. I know it's weird, but I like chewing. That's a way for me to sort of cut out distraction and to help me to focus. It's so those kind of things I can carry forward. I like to have celery. It's not, it's not as high in calories, but I do like other snacks, which I'm going to actually talk a bit more about in this micro workshop. So the few things that we're going to do in addition to learning from our own past is thinking about mindfulness and how that can also help us increase in concentration and focus. I'm going to talk a little bit about selective attention as well as goal setting. So let's get started with mindfulness. I first learned about mindfulness in my Master's of Education program. I found it very interesting. And here's a definition from John Kabat-Zinn. And he's the first person that I heard from and about mindfulness. He has a lot of books on the topic as well as YouTube videos, so you can explore YouTube very easily. But this is a definition of mindfulness. So it's paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. So just to give you an example, I just think it just it resonates with me. A lot of experiences that I've had. So I'm driving the car, for example, and I get to where I'm going, and then I realize, like, wow, I'm here already. And I realized I wasn't really paying attention to the journey of getting there. I was thinking maybe about what happened yesterday, or maybe I was thinking about a conversation that I was planning to have with someone, and I just wasn't in the present moment at all. So it's a little frightening when you're driving because you want to pay attention to your driving. I didn't get in an accident, so it was okay, but it was really interesting to think about, okay, I wasn't really here at the time. So anytime as you do mindfulness, that's interesting. It's a phrase that I like to use so that I don't get frustrated or negative with myself. Because mindfulness is starting to pay attention. So if I'm not focused in the present moment, I could get frustrated. Why do I keep thinking about that? Why can't I focus right now? Um, but instead, start with that's interesting. So that's interesting. I keep thinking about that conversation I had yesterday. So I'm having a hard time focusing right now. I wonder why that is. Maybe I need to call that person and take care of that. Or, I was walking in the woods and I wasn't paying attention to my surroundings. Well, that's interesting. Um, so I wonder why, what's on my mind, or so everything is kind of started with that's interesting as a way to learn about yourself and just observe, like, that's interesting. So what I try to do now is redirect when I can. So if I'm having a walk and I know that it's a break for me, I want to take full advantage of that break. So I start to pay attention a little bit more to the smell of the earth and looking at the leaves and really taking that time to enjoy that moment. So how can we increase our ability to do that? Well, here's an activity that you can do. This is to increase our mindfulness. There's lots of different ways you can do this, meditation and different things you can search on YouTube. Um, but I like food. I think a lot of us like food. And I find it distracting enough that it was a good way for me to start. So here are some steps to start to increase mindfulness with food. So, for example, I have this Oreo cookie, and I'm going to start by just really paying attention to the cookie. I'm going to smell the cookie, and then I'm going to slowly eat the cookie. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of the icing and just really taste the icing, and then maybe a bit with the cookie, and then I start to play with the ratio, like maybe a bit more cookie, a little less icing. I'm just really experiencing the cookie and just like thinking about the flavors. Is it my tongue that the flavors, or is it the roof of my mouth? Where are the flavors coming from? Like, just if you've never done this before, it might feel a little bit weird, but what you're doing is you're really increasing your focus on this cookie and you're directing your attention to different aspects of the cookie. So how can this affect coursework? Well, by practicing and doing this repeatedly, you'll start to do it more naturally. So what you're going to be doing is deciding what to focus on. So you're just more aware of this whole process. You're going to choose. It's okay to let your mind wander, but sometimes maybe you don't want to. So you're just going to be paying attention a bit more to when it wanders, when it doesn't, and try to realign when you want to increase your focus. So if you're with some family members or someone who's important to me, I want to spend more attention on that person. I want to be there in the moment and enjoy that. So I want to realign. So that's my choice, and but I have more of an awareness and ability to do so. And then shifting between tasks, being able to let go of a previous task so that I can focus on the next. So this is really just start to practice it. Food is one way, but there's lots of different ways to start practicing mindfulness. So let's talk about selective attention. If anyone's watched this video before, you can search it on YouTube under selective attention, and I add, there's the YouTube video. I was just about to give something away there. So they're telling you what to do. They're telling you what to pay attention to. Count the times the players in white pass the basketball. So we're counting. Okay, so we see how many times you counted. Now the main thing about this video is that there was a gorilla that walked through the screenshot, and you may or may not have seen it. And the first time I didn't see it. And it's not a good or bad thing. It's just that's interesting. So you were told what to do. You were told where to what to focus on, and that would make it easier for you to count the basketballs and ignore distractions because you had your focused attention. Now, if you saw the gorilla, it's not a bad thing either. It's just maybe you notice some other things, and maybe you get distracted more easily. It's hard to say. Or maybe you just didn't really care about counting the basketball, so you weren't really as focused on doing that task. So there's a lot of factors involved, but it is very interesting. So how can we carry this forward in our coursework? The main thing is that we want to direct our attention. So before doing anything, we want to say, this is what I'm going to do. And just by doing that, you're more likely to be able to focus and disregard other distractions, just like that task with counting the basketballs. So looking at our syllabus, thinking about exams and assignments coming up, and maybe reviewing it, or anything you know about that before you do a reading or before a lecture, anything like that, so that you are listening for those key information that you can collect for your assignment or your exams. So what this looks like is I have case study exams for my business classes. So when I'm listening to a lecture, I have my notepad ready and I'm taking notes like almost preparing for those case studies. So if I see this, this is the formula I would use and this is the information I would get. That way, if I'm doing my case study, I can quickly go to my notes and I don't have to go back to that lecture because I won't have time. So I'm being um, I have an agenda. I know what I want from the lecture, and it also helps increase my focus in the lecture because I'm interacting with it. I'm doing something with the information. I'm not just passively listening. For reading, other things you can do, or for PowerPoint, is use headings. So titles, make them questions. So I have a reading. It says green energy. Well, a question I can make is, what is green energy? And then when I'm reading, I'm going to look for the answer to that question. So I'm taking notes on what is green energy. That's really good for definition type exams as well, so that I'm collecting definitions as I go through my content in my course. So this is a way to increase focus. So the last strategy I'm going to talk about is goal setting. So goal setting is to give structure to study time, which is really key when you're learning online, so that you have purpose. So what that looks like is an example. Let's say I'm going to study for chemistry. So you can think, well, that's a goal, but it's not really that clear. I might lose my focus. So what's a little clearer? Well, I'm going to study for 2 hours. 2 hours is a big chunk of time. I probably would get unfocused in that time. Maybe I start going social media. I just distracted about what's going on in my home. I'm just not as focused. Well, how can we get more focused? Well, let's get more purposeful. So, for example, the next 30 minutes, I'm going to create practice questions for Unit 1. So that's what I'm going to do for 30 minutes. I know that I would probably lose focus after 30 minutes. So I'm going to take a 10-minute break and I'm going to go back and I'm going to test myself. So in that 30 minutes, or maybe it's 20, start where you think you reflect on how long you think you can focus for. And at certain times the day might matter too. But you have a goal for that time. And then you're going to take breaks in between. You're going to probably have less likely to get unfocused and you're going to get more accomplished, which is really nice. So those are just some quick tips. Feel free to explore the full workshop on Experience View and other micro workshops in the NAP event. And thanks for joining me.